There's a moment in life that's incredibly uncomfortable. It's the moment you realize that the problems in your life might not actually be caused by other people. They might be caused by you. And for a long time, I didn't want to accept that. For a while, whenever something went wrong in my life, I could always find something else to blame. The situation, the timing, other people. It's actually really easy to convince yourself that you're just unlucky or misunderstood. But eventually, you start noticing patterns. The same arguments, the same mistakes, the same situations repeating themselves over and over again. And at some point, you have to ask a very uncomfortable question. What if the common denominator in all of this is me? That's a difficult moment because it forces you to confront parts of yourself you'd rather ignore, your habits, your decisions, the way you treat people. It's much easier to believe that life is happening to you rather than accept that sometimes it's happening because of you. But that realization is also the beginning of real change, because if you're the problem, you can also become the solution. A lot of people never reach that point, not because they're incapable of changing, but because accepting responsibility for your own behavior is painful. It forces you to let go of the version of yourself that you thought you were. You have to admit that you were wrong about certain things. You have to admit you hurt people. You have to admit that you could have done better, and that is not easy. Strangely enough, that moment of honesty is also incredibly freeing, because once you stop blaming everything else, you gain control. If your behavior created some of the problems in your life, then changing your behavior can create a different future, and that's where growth actually begins. It's not when you feel motivated, it's not even when you watch a video like this, it's when you look at yourself and you say, I need to change. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid that moment, but for me, it ended up being one of the most important realizations I've ever had, because the moment you realize you're the problem is also the moment you realize you have the power to become better. Another thing I started noticing when I had that realization is how easy it is to protect your ego. Your mind will constantly try to justify your behavior. You'll say things like, they deserved it, it wasn't that bad, and anyone else would have done the same. And at the time, those explanations feel completely reasonable. Other people might even agree with you. But when you look back honestly, you realize they were just ways of protecting the version of yourself you wanted to believe that you were. The problem with ego is that it doesn't want the truth, it wants comfort. Admitting that you were the problem in certain situations forces you to question the identity you built around yourself. You might think you're a good partner, a good friend, a good person, but when your actions contradict that, you're forced to confront the gap between who you think you are and how you actually behave. And that gap can be difficult to look at. This is why many people never actually change. Not because they're incapable, but because the process of change starts with honesty, and honesty can be brutal. It means acknowledging everything that you've done. If you've hurt someone, if you've made a selfish decision, if you ignore your own standards, you would rather avoid discomfort than actually sit with the fact that you were capable of doing those things. You keep telling yourself the same stories. You keep blaming the same things, and nothing really changes. But when you do accept it, something interesting happens. The narrative shifts. Instead of saying, why does this always happen to me? You start asking, what role did I play in this? And that question's a lot more powerful because it forces you to look inward instead of outward. It forces you to examine your habits, your decisions, the way you carry yourself through life. For me, this realization didn't come all at once. It happened gradually. Little moments where I started recognizing my own patterns in my behavior. Situations where I realized I could have acted differently. Times where I realized I'd let my ego or my impulses dictate my actions. And slowly, I began understanding something that most people only realize later in life. Your life doesn't change when your circumstances change. It changes when you change. That's why the moment you realize you're the problem is actually one of the most important moments you can have. It's uncomfortable, it's humbling, but it's also the beginning of self-awareness. Without self-awareness, real growth is impossible, because you can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge. Thank you for watching.